Hello Sunshine. Welcome back to another episode of Heartablazepodcast. Today, I'm a little bit behind schedule this week because there's just a ton of stuff going on, trying to upgrade my equipment and trying to do a lot of things. I'm trying to do some things for friends as well. It's kind of like my week of trying to do nice things for friends because I'm being reflective and grateful for people like Tika, flatmate, my friend that I haven't reached out to in a while, just great people that I have in my life, trying to rebuild connections and also maintain connections. So just a lot going on and kind of trying to fix things like my tooth and then, doing things I want to do like tattoos. It's just been a crazy week. But so I thought I'd do a slightly different episode where we kind of learn something together. So I've always wanted to learn more about this subject, but basically, you know how there's introverts and there's extroverts, and you used to fall into sort of either one category. But there's some people like me, which, is not new. Some of us feel like we're sometimes a little bit introverted, sometimes we're extroverted. It's very contextual. And we can be very, very much a people person and really kind of nagging, clingy. But then in some contexts, we just really want to be left alone and just have our own recharge time where we just kind of scroll on our phone, have no social interaction. And so in a more recent kind of study, they've come up with a new type, and it's actually called Otroverts. And I thought, let's read up a few articles together for this episode, a little bit about it and learn about it together so we can discover something new about ourselves. So I brought up an article that's from ABC News, and it says the title is "Not Introverted or Extroverted, You Could Be an Otrovert." Do you prefer to see friends one-on-one rather than in a group? Are you more of an observer than an active participant? Perhaps you prefer to stand out rather than fit in. Or possibly an introvert. According to Rami Kaminsky, an American psychiatrist, who coined the term after recognizing the personality type in his patients and in himself. He says introverts are outsiders treated like insiders, welcome into groups even though they don't feel like they fit in. Unlike extroverts or introverts, Dr. Kaminsky says introverts, it's actually very hard to say, introverts do not retreat inward or look outward to be energized. Introverts are shy and reclusive, mainly preoccupied with their inner world, he wrote for the Australian Financial Review. Introverts are acutely aware of other people and cannot find refuge inside themselves when surrounded by others. Very true. If anything, they are too attuned to the world around them. Empath as well, I think that plays a role into it. Carly Dober, a psychologist and policy coordinator at the Australian Association of Psychologists, says introversion is only a hypothesis at this stage. Okay, good to know. There's no peer-reviewed research into it. That's not to say it is invalid. We just don't have research to back it up, Miss Dober says. And that's how many terms are created and later validated. Someone's saying, I noticed something clinically and I'm calling it X. Extroverts and introverts versus introverts. Introversion and extroversion are spectrums of energy levels or responsiveness to socializing, explains Ms. Dober. She says introverts typically describe needing more alone time and get strained from socializing. They might be considered homebodies. Pretty familiar all up to this point. Extroverts, on the other hand, can enjoy their own time but get energy from being around other people. They are often loud and exuberant, Ms. Dober says. So that's the kind of impression I give people when I've gotten to know them a bit more, and when I'm in a comfortable sort of context, when I'm in a environment familiar with and I'm not the newest person there. Typically, the majority of people are probably ambivert, where they can enjoy both elements, and there's a heavy overlap. So there's kind of a term already developed there, kind of, I guess people were already noticing that. And obviously, there's something I read later, which will probably be somewhere over here. It's, they kind of mentioned that there could be other sort of contributing factors that kind of changes introverts and extroverts, kind of make them a little bit more, I guess, blurred lines. Just kind of similar to when your attachment style, anxiety, anxious attachment, secure attachment, and avoidant attachment. It can really kind of blur a little bit, and the percentage is more like a percentage of each rather than just falling into one category. Examples of introversion. Now we get into the good stuff. These are just some core qualities of Otroverts, according to Dr. Kaminsky, extracted from his book, The Gift of Not Belonging, How Outsiders Thrive in a World of Joiners. Interesting. Finding more books I want to read. Are not likely to throw themselves birthday parties and generally avoid group celebrations of any kind. My birthday's coming up this Friday, and I'm keeping it really low because I like celebrating and I love celebrating other people. I make sure like I have a good time, but I just don't do like big celebrations and stuff. Unless it's like I really have a big close group of friends that I kind of feel like they all kind of work together, then I'd probably put it all together. But otherwise, separate catch-ups usually. Prefer sports and activities where they can compete individually. I don't know about that one. Don't like bringing, oh, actually, yeah, maybe because I tend to play like soccer and stuff on my own, even though like, because the idea of having to go through all the groups and stuff kind of like throws me off a little bit. It makes me a bit scared. Don't like bringing together people from different parts of their lives, even if those people know each other. It's, I'm getting better with that, to be honest. And it's mostly because like I think like I understand the difficulty of like the area I work in for like content creation, and with other people that I know that content creation, other friends that do that, it's made me want to like network and connect people more, like connecting different people that don't even know each other. So I don't know if that really holds true for me anymore. Don't feel an affinity with a particular sports team, an alma mater, or a company they work for. Stand by their opinions and convictions if asked to weigh in on something at work, and aren't swayed by the opinions their colleagues have expressed. It can be if it's some area that I'm very like well knowledgeable about and like something I'm passionate about. I'm usually pretty keen to stand on my ground and make my opinions heard. But I'm still not like great at confrontation. They're specialists rather than generalists, with interests and skills that run narrow but deep. Very true. Despite having differing points of views, Otroverts are not combative or argumentative. Rather, they come across as polite, friendly, and even outgoing. Yeah. Peace. Overall. Confrontation averse, considerate, sometimes to a fault. That's pretty much what I was talking about. Is it worth exploring whether you are an extrovert? Ms. Dobus says, from a skeptical point of view, there could be many reasons people might display the behaviors or have feelings Dr. Kaminsky has listed. This is what I was talking about. It could be divergence, trauma, neglect, and abuse in childhood, she says. It could be counterculture, wanting to identify as a free thinker, performing to that. If it's a real phenomenon, she says, that could be quite exciting. It means people who haven't seen themselves in the three categories, introvert, extrovert, ambivert, might have a great understanding of their identity and preferences, similar to Attached, the book that I'm reading right now about attachment styles. Really kind of like helps you, knowing deeper and kind of how to apply it, and also about like biology, like that it's natural to want help and live in a society with like social groups and stuff. Learning about these properties and stuff really helps you understand about yourself much better. Guided by Dr. Kaminsky's definition, Ms. Dober says, Otroverts may feel they thrive in making deep relationships with core people in their lives, which is a huge strength, displaying high levels of empathy and connection and being energized by relationships. Big thumbs up on my end. They may struggle in bigger groups, however. I'm thinking about when you start a new job or degree and you've sent off to work on a project with a group of people, they can feel very out of step. Oh my God. So quick story. I remember when I started doing my first degree, my university degree, my first one, it was fine arts. So bachelor in fine arts. And I remember for the first time after being comfortable making friends easily in high school, I felt so out of depth. I went to university, had the hardest time making friends, got put in a group and was doing like trying to do an animation, so we had to come up with a storyline and everything, and I was just kind of like listening to people and saying like, yeah, whatever you say, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, cool, that's a great idea. Couldn't really think of anything. I was just so kind of like overtaken by the whole, I guess, like the moment of like having to kind of try to fit into the group. And it was just like, I was so Asian at the time, I was still kind of like getting used to Western culture because I was growing up in Australia, but I was in such an Asian environment back at home. And when I finally started moving out, that's when I kind of really embraced more like Western culture and kind of had more things to talk about with people. And just little moments like that made you feel really alienated and isolated, and and it just made me more nervous. And like the more nervous you think about it, the more things get harder. But yeah, it was a very difficult time. I had a group of friends later on that was like a really close knit group, and they were like the best people ever. We don't really talk anymore. Like I've fallen out of the group, but it was like an incredible time, and I really like am grateful that I had them, because they made me feel like finally like I fit in somewhere, and that I could be myself, and that there was like nothing wrong with me, and it was a hard feeling to live with. Let's go back to this. So I'm thinking about when you started a new job, blah, blah, blah. Jacqueline Bolk is a clinical psychologist in Melbourne and says Otroverts sound secure and self-assured and don't really need to look outside for validation approval. I'm getting more and more confident with that, but there's still like work to be done on that. I feel like if I fall for someone or something like that, or if I put someone like really high on a pedestal in terms of importance, and it doesn't kind of, if I get a criticism and it doesn't come back well, I still get affected quite a lot. Like if I take it quite personally. So, it isn't all accurate, but this is good like information, and I'm learning a lot. And I hope you are too. So the value of a label, I mean, this is in the most generous way to humans. We are so interested in ourselves. Ms. Dober says, understanding why we are the way we are is endlessly fascinating to us. Correct. She says, categories are helpful to the human brain. Categories allow us to put things into a mental schema, help us work out how the world, the personal life works. It can also be helpful when getting to know other people. Telling someone you are an introvert can signal a few things. That's true, how people to better interact with you, better understand what you need, the space that you need, the type of communication you prefer, when to kind of give you a push and when to kind of take a step back. If you appeal to the, what was it? But Dr. Bork warns there is a downside to personality labels. If you appeal to them too much, you lose that curiosity to explore what might be going on underneath, she says. I'm all for a label if someone feels it's helpful. I would just be curious to explore what it is about that label they find helpful. If introversion resonates with you, Ms. Dover suggests talking to others who may feel the same way. Talking to a GP, counselor, or psychologist can also help you unpack it further. There might be things underlying what you think is introversion, but could be something completely different. That's very true. That's what can be dangerous about self-labeling. We might land on a different conclusion, definitely missing something important, Ms. Dover says. That's one thing I want to bring up. I've been learning a lot about myself this year because self-growth has been a very crucial part of my journey, especially with like sobriety and all that kind of stuff. And also just like not having worked for a while, or like being unstable in jobs, and then starting content creation and really kind of honing in on it. I do believe that I'm not diagnosed, but I probably very likely have some level of ADHD. I also probably have some kind of like family childhood kind of issue that I need resolving. But I don't think it's like bad enough to kind of get in the way of my relationships. What else was I going to say? I need to work on like sort of confrontation, and also kind of like being a bit more sort of disciplined with certain things, and setting goals and like really, really sticking to them. I am like a go-getter when it comes down to it, especially when I'm like interested in something, and if it's important to me, like 100%. Like when someone's important to me, like a partner, like I 100% guarantee, I trust in myself that I would not disappoint them, and I would come through in so many different ways. But that's the thing, like I think when you use these labels, it's good to help them identify things. For example, ADHD really helps me understand, for example, when I interrupt people when they're talking about something, it's my way of, and it's many ADHDers ways of showing people that they're actually actively listening, that, hey, I know about the subject, I'm really, really engaging with it, I'm really interested in what you're talking about. It's not like, here's my 2 cents. It's more like, yeah, I hear you. So I'm not just like not listening or like tuning out and staring off into the distance. But that can be very, very disruptive for other people and very hard for them to finish their train of thought. And It also works the other way around when people like who prefer to finish a story and then have you kind of say, but like by that point, a lot of our train of thought has kind of lost its momentum or lost its moment. So we just kind of forget what we were going to say. So we just kind of have very little to say at the end. What I was trying to say is the point is you take things with a grain of salt. That's very important, especially with labels and stuff. Use certain things to identify and kind of give yourself like a break from like giving yourself harsh judgment and being so hard on yourself. Um, but use it to like a good, use it to your advantage for a positive um, gain. Try to use it for growth rather than just kind of like being like okay with things, but also just know that like a lot of things people tell you something is a certain way and it can't be changed. Our brain is very, very flexible. It can be ingrained in a certain way and then kind of get routed into like this habit, but it can be rewired if you try hard enough and be patient enough. And a lot of that is also to do with like 1% growth, where it's like, looks like there's nothing happening when you kind of establish a minor habit for ages. And then when it hits that breaking point, it suddenly spikes up and you see all of this like stuff happening. But really, it's been happening all behind in the background. Like it would not have happened without this whole like quiet time frame that you've been patiently building that habit. Okay, so I think that's probably more than enough for now. It's kind of acts as an intro, and then we can always talk more about it in another episode. I'm kind of running low on storage space. It's another part of the reason why I'm cutting the episode a bit short. But yeah, keeping it short and sweet. Let me know in the comments down below if there's anything else you kind of want me to do around this subject for a video. Should I go in depth more into like INFJs and all that kind of stuff, like how it compares? And read more sort of studies if there are any studies around it, or should I get the book and maybe we can do like a reading together for like an episode. But otherwise, I guess I'll see you in that next episode. Hope you're having a great week and a great weekend.